Hello again from my front porch. I swear someday I'm going to have to put together a blooper reel for these things. You would not believe how many times I tried starting this episode. So, anyway, I have something that's been on my mind for a couple of days, and it's like random out of nowhere, I suppose. Well, no, it's in response to something I read, so it's not completely out of nowhere, I guess. But reboots. I am so tired of reboots. I mean, I understand it's because apparently the genius creative minds out in Hollywood have run out of anything new that they can actually sell, and that the big thing is we need to produce stuff that makes money, and so let's go back to something that already showed it makes money and do it again. Let's update it for a modern audience, blah 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 blah. Now, conceptually I don't mind the idea. I think it's kind of it goes back to the heart of what we all have done. Well, those of us with a level of creativity. Some folks were just boring and probably never did this, and for those people I feel very sorry. But anyway, I remember as a kid, playing with my friends, pretending to be our favorite TV shows and stuff. But we would make up our own. You didn't act out episodes that you had just watched. You would be the character and you'd make your own adventures. You do your own stuff. And now, almost every significant fandom that exists today has fans writing stories, writing their own fan stories of the character. So we all have visions for other things that the characters could do, and in some cases, we even envision them going beyond the confines of the defined world that they live in that we've seen on TV or in the movies. So, it's not like it's unusual, but come on, where does it stop? And when is it actually successful? Here's what triggered it for me. I just saw an article here the other day that said that there is actually a plan to reboot All in the Family, The Jeffersons, and something else. I'm sure it was another spin-off from the All in the Family Jeffersons. I'm not sure which one now, because back in the day when those shows were on, Happy Days, All in the Family, shows like that, they were extremely popular, and they did spawn several other shows and some succeeded, some did not. But the point is, they did spawn spin-offs. Now, spin-offs, that's one thing. I'm fine with spin-offs. Give them a shot. Let's see if this character or this group of people or that area can be. Let's do it. Let's go for it. But when you talk about rebooting something, you're basically talking about going back to square one and retelling the whole story with new cast people and everything. Which, again, conceptually, I can see where there's appeal to that. But I'm really hard pressed to come up with really hardly any examples of something being successfully rebooted, something successfully going back to the beginning, starting all over, retelling the story, and doing so in a way that was well received by the fans. I mean, for me personally, the closest example I can think of is the movie The A-Team. Now, I say for me personally because it died at the box office. It didn't get the support because fans of the TV show didn't care for it all that much. Now, ironically, I remember seeing people say that they couldn't support it because it was just too far-fetched. And I was like, but you did watch the TV show, right? I mean, the whole thing was far-fetched. But, okay, whatever. I really, as I was thinking about this, is thinking reboots. What reboots have worked? What has been rebooted that has actually worked? And the only one that really comes to mind that at least was working, and now we'll see if it still does because of major actor issue, was Lethal Weapon. There was the Lethal Weapon movies with Danny Glover and Mel Gibson, and then it was rebooted as a TV series. And I I had my reservations when they announced that they were going to do that. I was like, I like the movies, I enjoy the movies, and they're going to ruin it. But I'm very pleasantly surprised that even though they altered and took liberties with a lot of details about it, they still built it on a foundation that was more than just using the names of the characters. They reinterpreted the characters in a way that I felt was very faithful to who the characters were in the movie series. And so I was really enjoying it. Now, unfortunately, the actor playing Riggs apparently had a meltdown and caused some troubles and got fired. And now they've replaced him with Stifler from the American Pie movies. Not a fan of anything that guy has ever done. So I'll give it a shot. I'll watch when it comes back on. But I'm just not. I'm not feeling it. It's gonna have to be. He's gonna have to amaze me, but I can't imagine he's going to, because everything I've seen that guy do, he plays the same character in everything, and I can't stand the character. So I'm sure I won't stand him now in this series, at which point the reboot will not work. But in that case, it'll be because of a choice of an actor, not because of the reboot itself. So that's the one example I can think of that I would say it has worked, and that popular, because it's like going in its third season, third season, I believe. So obviously there were viewers and people watching, so it was working. But I could go down the list. Speaking of another one that stupid actor was in, was the Dukes of Hazzard. That was oh man, horrible. The Beverly Hillbillies, horrible. Green Hornet, horrible. In fact, Seth Rogen, can't stand hardly anything that guy's done either. But just completely messed up the Green Hornet. And while we're on the topic of the Green Hornet, the Lone Ranger, that was completely messed up too. Putting Johnny Depp in the role of Tonto, number one, was a huge mistake. That should have been a Native American anyway. It should not have been Johnny Depp at all. But then making Tonto such a focus of the movie was also a mistake. It was putting the focus where it ought not have been. Partnership of the Lone Ranger and Tonto, great, but it's called the Lone Ranger, and we needed to see more of that. And I'm a huge Lone Ranger fan, but that's not the first reboot that has failed. Back in the 80s, they did The Legend of the Lone Ranger, and it also failed. And they both did the same stupid approach where they tried to start from the beginning and tried to present this reluctant hero main character who, there's a love interest built in, and, how Butch Cavendish has this great grand plan, and the Lone Ranger is protecting the entire country somehow with all this stuff. And, the reality is that that's not what the Lone Ranger was about. The Lone Ranger was about this guy who is a Texas Ranger, who is a brave fellow who becomes the Lone Ranger because he gets attacked by Butch Cavendish and his gang. And Butch Cavendish and his gang were just outlaws, really successful outlaws, but just outlaws. And eventually the Lone Ranger catches all of them and puts them all in prison. And if Disney would have taken that approach, I think it would have been a fantastic movie. Don't show the Lone Ranger as being this guy without a mask who's basically helpless and hopeless, and then he puts on the mask and, now he finds himself. No, present him as who he is the whole time, and the mask is just an extension of the character. We need heroes to look up to, and Green Hornet, Lone Ranger, those are both examples of movies that the studio completely botched in doing the reboots. But I could go down the list the list goes on. Dragnet was another one it's a little older back now, but Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd teaming up to do a reboot of Dragnet. And they made it a comedy, for crying out loud. Same thing with Starsky and Hutch. That was more recent. Made it a comedy too. Now, these are shows that had some humor in them. Dragnet, not quite so much, but Starsky and Hutch certainly had some humor in it. But these things, and then Green Hornet is an example of this too, where they try to make them into these buddy comedies, and that's not what these shows were. That's not why they worked. And it's like, if you're gonna reboot it, at least try to be faithful. Of course, more recently, there was the reboot rumors about the guy who did the original Stargate movie that then launched the Stargate SG-1 series for 10 years, Stargate Atlantis for 5 years, Stargate Universe for 2 years. There are 3 TV movies in there too. But the guy who launched the original movie wanted to go back and reboot it. That he wanted to go back and reboot it as a new movie trilogy. Well, he always hated the TV shows, so it was a given he was going to erase everything that was done on television. And because he wanted to tell his vision of the story. Well, it's the same guy that did Independence Day and then felt the need 20 years later to do Independence Day 2, and we all remember how well that worked. And so, fortunately, MGM pulled the plug and said, nope, we're not going to let you screw up the Stargate franchise like you did now with Independence Day. So, thank you, MGM, for that. But, had he been able to proceed, you have 17 years of established TV fandom that you've got a guy who's going to make a movie and go, thumb your nose at the fans and who cares about you? That's stupid. And that goes to the heart of why these reboots always make me nervous, because it's someone thinking they're being creative, but in reality, they're just shutting the door in the face of the actual fan. Why, if you have a built-in fan base, would you turn them against the very product you're attempting to reboot? Which takes me back to the very beginning with the A-Team one. I still don't understand why people didn't like that one, because I thought it was incredibly faithful to the TV show. Oh, you know what? Another reboot that I think I am okay with was Maverick. Now, there were parts of it that I was like, I don't know that I like that so much. But as far as an updating and a rebooting goes, I could deal with it. Now, one of the reasons I liked it, though, was because it technically was a reboot because it was a different actor, and he was Mel Gibson instead of James Garner. And he was portraying the character a bit differently than James Garner had on television. And so that's why I considered it a reboot. But they didn't actually try to go back and recreate the origin of Brett Maverick or anything like that. They basically just, recast the character and started telling an all-new Maverick story. And so, that I was okay with that. And in fact, James Garner said in an interview, I didn't know this at the time that I watched the movie, but James Garner said in an interview later that when for the role he was playing, which, spoiler alert, he plays Brett Maverick's dad. I say spoiler alert now because the first time I saw it in the theater, when we were leaving the theater, I was just so blown away by that I was talking loudly to my wife at the time about, I can't believe that James Garner was his dad. And I'm having this conversation as we're walking past the line of people waiting in line to go in and see the movie. Oops. So maybe next episode we'll talk about spoilers. But anyway, but James Garner played Brett Maverick's father, Pappy, in the movie, which is kind of funny because back in the old 1950s TV series, James Garner played Pappy Maverick there too. They did a very creative episode or two where Brett goes back home and is talking with his dad, his Pappy, and James Garner played both roles. He played Brett and he played Pappy Maverick. So it's not James Garner's first run at playing Brett Maverick's dad. But what I found was interesting was they never in the movie really specify that it's the same Pappy Maverick. And James Garner said in his mind when he was playing that character in the movie, he was playing the same character he played on TV, the Brett Maverick that we knew on TV. He was playing that character as a father. In his mind, he was playing the same character. So see, in that case, it's not a reboot, it's a continuation. And I love continuations, like the Dallas TV series. That was a good continuation, I thought, until they went off on the whole drug cartel thing and just kind of messed it up. And of course, then Larry Hagman passed away, and it's really difficult to have Dallas without JR, unfortunately. So anyway, that was that. But anyway, so there you go. There's my griping about, and starting to get dark now, so I gotta stop. I should move my camera this way so you can still see me. But I gotta be signing off anyway because the sun's going down. Nice, beautiful night here in Iowa. But anyway, that's me griping about reboots. I can't stand reboots. I wish it'd stop. And J.J. Abrams with his Star Trek reboot. I had such high hopes for that until I found out that it was an alternate timeline thing. That's just stupid. That's just dumb. And it's all just so that he could futz with stuff and be able to have characters doing things they otherwise didn't do in the original series. He wanted to be able to use the ship, the characters, and the atmosphere, but then make up his own stories, do whatever he wanted to, and who cares about what was already established? Doesn't matter. That's basically what he wanted to do, and that's what he's done with his Star Trek franchise. And so that's why I go see the movies, but I only see them one time. All right, well, anyway, I said I'm going to let you go because it's getting dark. I should let you go. I'll see y'all next time, but not watching a reboot. I'll see y'all next time from my front porch.